Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast, where we explore how to turn coaching expertise into published pages. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, portfolio career specialist, accredited future of work coach, author and creator of Coach Right 90, the writing programme specifically designed for coaches. You can get the episode show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. It's time for the next chapter. Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of the Coach Right podcast. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, recording on Friday the 14th of November 2025. My guest today is Viv Chitty, executive coach, coach supervisor, and author of Coaching for Optimal Energy. Viv did what I know a lot of coaches want to do and turned her academic writing into a book. She shared how she did that, along with her experience of both the traditional and independent sides of the publishing process. It's as fascinating as the topic of her book. I'm sure I'm not alone in noticing that energy comes up time and time again in coaching conversations. How we manage it, how to have more of it, how to understand it. And it's an important consideration when you decide to write a book. You might have heard me say before that you don't just sit down one rainy Sunday afternoon and bash out 70,000 words in one go. Writing a book quite often starts with little more than an idea that takes a while to germinate. Once you make the decision to go ahead, you'll be flooded with new project energy. You'll be excited and you won't be able to wait until you get to your laptop and get words on the page. And for any project, whether it's writing or something else, if you have that starter energy, leverage it. Enjoy being in flow. When you're writing, lean into it and get the words down. Don't worry about whether they're any good. Go for quantity, not quality. You'll come back later and edit it. Trouble is, energy isn't always consistent, and neither is motivation, and you need both to finish your book. The good news is people have done this before and have left the ladder down. They have shared the themes. Knowing what's coming when you're writing long form is very helpful from a mindset perspective, because after the starting energy comes what Seth Godin calls the dip. This is the bit where it all starts to get a bit difficult, when progress slows and you might start to question whether you've made the right choice. The dip is where dreams dissolve. It's where the giving up happens. In writing, we sometimes call this the deep pit of despair, where it all feels a little bit like a slog and you wonder whether it's going to be worth it. But on the other side of the dip is the uptick towards mastery and the journey towards finishing your first draft, where you're leaning into your learning mindset, buckling up and working through. All the time watching the energy levels, knowing that as you near the end, you'll likely feel another surge. As with any transformational goal, there are going to be highs and lows along the way, but we all know that the rewards sit at the end of the process. Another topic Viv and I spoke about was the use of AI, and specifically AI coaches. While on one hand I can completely understand how someone who maybe couldn't afford coaching might consider this option, or why an organisation might look to bring on such a tool, there's an ongoing debate about how, when, where and whether AI should be used, and all of the ethical considerations that surround that. I was catching up with the New York Times' Hard Fork podcast last week, where they shared an update on a tragic story that I think it's really important we are all aware of. In 2024, 18-year-old Saul Setzer was engaging with a chatbot character AI. He formed a relationship of sorts, a friendship. A bot, like many of the tools we're currently using, was designed to be agreeable. And so when he started to talk about thoughts of self-harm, the bot was agreeable to that too. No safeguarding, no signposting, no intervention. Simply a tragedy. Following a lawsuit, Character AI has now banned under 18s from their site. Now, this is a child accessing a bot designed for role play, not an adult working with an AI for coaching. And who's to say whether, if Saul had reached out to a teacher or community leader, whether the outcome would have been different. For me, as the tools advance and I integrate them into process, there is even more need for a delineation between the digital and the human. And while I would hope that this outcome brings some solace to the family, it will never be enough. I'll add the link to the episode in the show notes. And putting human-us at the core of our careers was the topic of the Future of Work Masterclass I ran last week. As we've said, it's a topic that's front of mind for many of us, and we delved into the importance of belonging, connection, trust, and purpose. For those of us that were children of the 20th century, we can probably describe the differing experiences of work most significantly. I remember working in an office where there was a fax machine. We sent letters. We all worked together in one place until the working day was done, and then we went home where we wouldn't be contacted until the next day. Now, many of us work in front of screens alone. It's no wonder we're craving human connection. The deeper I get into writing and researching the Resilience book, the more I read about how important this is. And what I really cherished about the masterclass last week was the time we took at the end to reflect as a group. As we head towards the end of the year, I'm sure I'm not alone in starting to think about my goals for 2026. I'm heading off to a face-to-face planning session next week, being run by business mentor Joanna Lott. She and I both took part in the Coaching Crowd Summit back in 2024, and I'm looking forward to meeting her in person, as well as spending a whole day dedicated to focusing on priorities and goals and the order of events for next year. So with that in mind, if there are topics you'd like covered during this podcast or authors you'd like me to interview on the show, please do feel free to drop me a quick note and let me know. Helen@HelenO'NeillCoaching.com. And if you're a coach and one of your goals for next year is writing a book, there are still a few places available to join one of the free Coach Write workshops running on the 3rd and 4th of December. Grab the details from the show notes. Anyway, that's enough from me. It's time for the next chapter. Welcome to the Coach Write podcast. My guest today is Viv Chitty. Viv is an EMCC accredited master practitioner and coach supervisor with over 20 years experience in executive coaching across a spectrum of organisations. She's pioneered the groundbreaking methodology Optimal Energy Coaching, which is based on her MA research and forms the basis of her book Coaching for Optimal Energy, a guide for executive coaches, which we'll be finding out more about today. Welcome to the show, Viv.
Hello.
Hello. And can you start by telling us a little bit more about you, your practice and your path to publication?
Right. So I live in Sussex with my husband and Diva, a little tabby cat, and have two sons. One lives in London, he's 24, and the other one has just started at Bristol University, so I'm getting used to having an empty nest at the moment. So that's sort of the family life. I have a degree in psychology. That's where my sort of love of this sort of work started, I think. A postgraduate diploma in counselling, which took 4 years, quite a long time ago. Have never been a counsellor, but just loved that training. And my early career was in consulting, mainly with the NHS, looking at the health of employees at work, with clients such as Marconi. And then I moved into another consultancy role, working with retail and transport organisations, setting up a big consultancy business to do that for a national charity, actually. And work with clients such as Virgin Trains, Woolworths, different building societies and so on. And I found coaching. I came to coaching because in about 1997, the HR director of Woolworths, who I got very well with, said to me, Viv, I can't come on your course, but I'd like you to come in and coach me on material. So I thought, as all good consultants do, I said, yes, that would be fine. That would be great. And let's get a date in the diary. And then put the phone down and thought, I don't know what's coaching. I don't know how to do it. I don't think I've really ever heard of it. And scuttled off and found the Whitmore book on the Grow model and read that, and then promptly went in and obviously didn't coach him. I just gave him the information from the course and we chatted it through. It wasn't coaching. But that sort of whetted my, it's like curiosity. It's like, what is this? What is this coaching thing? And then I was on the tube in London. I was living in London, and I bumped into an ex-colleague of mine who was sat on the tube with the School of Coaching brochure on her lap. And I just remember, it's Anne Schooler, who's one of the founders of Mailer Campbell coaching training organisation. And I looked at Anne and I looked at the brochure and I said, what is that? What is that course? And she said, I can introduce you to them. It's the School of Coaching programme at the Industrial Society with Miles Downey. I can get you, I can introduce you to them. And so I went on the course. So I've been an executive coach since 1998. Amazing. So that's how I got into coaching. And I mean, it's just what I love doing. I've got a sort of small coaching consultancy with a small team of associates. And have been providing executive coaching to mainly senior clients since 1998. I'm also a coach supervisor, working with my coaching colleagues. And I think my focus is very much on working with senior people to help them to meet the many demands that are made on them. And it's not just looking at performance, it's looking at the whole human, how they can be enabled to flourish at work and make their life manageable, their working life manageable. Because if we're just looking continually at drive, then we're going to lead to people who don't want to be in that role anymore because it just gets too much. So it's very much looking at performance as well as all the other stuff around them. And so that's my passion, is really supporting senior people at work and working with entrepreneurs as well, which is something that I'm doing more of now. So
I love those serendipitous moments when you're like on the tube and somebody's with a brochure. That's such a wonderful story.
Wonderful. And that was the second serendipitous moment, because the first one was going back and getting my standard paper out of the bin at King's Cross Station. Well, I put it in and then thought to myself, it's the train journey's boring. There were bits I hadn't read, got it out. And in that was the job advert that made my career, which I started in 1995. So wow. 2 things on the train. I'm looking for the third, but it's never happened.
Absolutely. There's some definite sliding door analogies going on here.
Yes, it's meant to be. Definitely meant to be. So you asking about what led to me writing the book. So working with my client base, so over 10 years ago, probably even 15 years ago, I found myself becoming increasingly aware of their differing energy levels. So some were very well energized for their daily working life, whereas others were looking like, at the time I was mainly picking up depleted energy, and wondering how I could work with that. People who had so many demands being made of them, multiple pressures at work, but also at home. And also with myself. So I had 2 young boys, running the business. I think at the time, let's say, throw in supervision training as well. And my mum had Alzheimer's. So I was very aware that I had to be managing my energy to be able to carry on, certainly with looking at the business, doing the best possible job for my clients, but also for being a mum, being the best mum I could possibly be, and so on. So I had to be very aware of managing my own energy. So I got very interested in the subject, and I started to snuffle around, looking for literature, and there wasn't any. There wasn't any in the coaching world. There was nothing in the coach supervision world at all. Nothing. There were some self-help books around, and there was the book by Lauren Schwartz, which was about managing your energy, not time, being the crucial thing for the working life. Now, that book was very, very good, but they were talking in it about things like, there are 4 different types of energy. And the ex-psychologist of me was sort of scratching her head and thinking, well, are there? Really? Oh, I'm not so sure. Are there? And I popped next door. I remember going next door to my neighbour who's GP and saying, what's the NHS definition of energy? And she just looked at me blankly. It just wasn't being really looked at in the research-based way. So I designed a coaching program for my clients that could be used if they needed it as an underpinning. All of this work is about underpinning what we do, not necessarily about being the focus. And I had it, my PA wrote it up for me. We had a lovely little booklet that went with it, but I was not satisfied because I wanted to know that I was doing the best possible job that I could. So I decided that I would do a master's to research the subject. I didn't want to do a master's for any other reason.
You had.
With all that spare time, mother with Alzheimer's, let's throw in she was really poorly by this point, let's throw in a master's into that as well. But I've spoken
something for you, actually.
That's exactly right.
It
was exactly right. It was, I'm carrying on doing just something for me. So I did the master's at Oxford Brookes with Adrian Mars as my supervisor. So there's no pulling the wool over his eyes, I can tell you that. And he pushed me hard. But he was brilliant. And Tatiana Bachkrova and people like that in my learning world. So that was fantastic. So the research question was, what does the concept of energy mean to executive coaches? And what they might be witnessing in their clients, and if relevant, how might that be addressed? So all of the work that's gone from that moment is based on the research with executive coaches. So the methodology I used for research was building concepts with my fellow practitioners. So all of this is based on that, and obviously the literature around in the field at the time. So it's not, none of this has just come from me. And actually in the book, the coaches who I discussed this with in the research, their quotes are throughout the book with their permission. So that's lovely. So you've got quotes from practitioners and they're not just me. So with that was the masters, and then my PA, Deb Marcy, who will come up a lot in this conversation, and she will listen to this at some point. So her feathers are going to be fluffed up considerably in the next 20 minutes or so. It was her that said to me, "Do you know what, Viv? There's a book in this." I was like, "Oh. Really?" I'd never thought of myself as writing a book, never aimed to write a book. She was like, there really is a book to be written here. So after finishing the masters, I think we had a bit of a lull, and there was more research that I could see coming in from occupational psychology, social psychology, positive psychology, those fields, not coaching research. And so it's obvious that, there was still more to write and more to gather the information. So in the end, I spoke to colleagues and ended up contracting with Routledge to write the book.
And I always love when people say, oh, someone just mentioned that this should be a book. And you're always like, thanks. Because once that seed is there, it's very difficult to ignore and actually turn what would have been an awful lot of work in the first place into another format. And I know a lot of coaches listening are in similar positions where they've written long form content for academic purposes, be that MA, be that PhD, and they are wanting a way to get that to a wider audience. And a book sort of seems like a logical next step. But obviously, the framing, the tone of voice, the structure is very different. So how did you take your thoroughly researched, peer overthought master's paper into the book that it became?
So I had to very much get into the place of the reader. So if I was the executive coach reading this book, what would I need? What would I need to be able to have this work inform my practice? So it was good to have this sort of research-based dissertation, but actually, how was I going to make that really useful for coaches and other people who do one-to-one work, for whom this might be relevant, and also people working with teams as well. So it was very much sort of getting to that point of how can I make this really, really useful? So the structure of the book is based around sort of core messages that the coaches, I think, it had to be based on my opinion, obviously, would find useful, such as a pragmatic view of what energy is. And so I don't know if you want me to go into more detail about the core messages, but really sitting in that position.
Actually, yeah.
Right, okay. Sitting in that position of, how is this going to be useful? And for coaches also of all levels, because, but I mean levels of experience. So for some very experienced coaches, they don't need to read about how they might witness energy being manifested in their clients, or they might not. Whereas for the lesser experienced coach, it can be really, really useful to have that really clarified. So, what is energy, and what might you see in your clients that's indicative of, say, depleted energy, optimal energy, and the concept which I introduced, which is inappropriate high energy. So what do you see in your clients who are inappropriately energized, highly energized for what they and their team around them need at that given time? So that was sort of a useful starting point, I think, because the book challenges the key concepts of energy that you've seen in the literature before, like the Luhr and Schwartz. There are 4 different types of energy. Well, actually, I found great research which shows that there are 2 different types of energy: physical energy and the concept of energetic activation, which is energy which is influenced by your emotions, and what they would call the other 3 pockets of energy that aren't physical. So that was highlighted as well. So do you want me to go into more detail about what the book looks at now, or is that going to be for later in this conversation?
Honestly, I could talk about energy all day. I think it comes up so frequently in client conversations around people feeling they've got no energy, people wanting more energy, people looking for ways to manage their energy.
Yes.
And actually, there's so much nuance involved. How did you kind of take all of that sort of self-help literature, research base, and then make it into something that people can practically use?
I went into a hell of a lot of detail about what the influences on energy are. That's the second chapter of the book. It's a long chapter. There's so many references, so that we can actually be really, really aware of what all the different influences that may be on that one human being at that time. So having that overview, but then very much looking at, okay, the argument for the role of the coach doing this work. That's the third chapter. But then from chapter 4 onwards, it's looking at, well, how do we work with our clients in a personal way? So how can this be a personalized way of them addressing their energy, but which is also holistic, so we don't forget anything? So we can actually help them to build an overview of their influences and what they might do to address some of them. So it's a really holistic and personalized approach. And that is really, really explored in detail in the book, with very much in chapter 4, a clarity of how you make that assessment of whether you do the work, how you would approach the subject with the person, what data you need to gather. Is it appropriate to do the work with the person at the time? Are there medical reasons that need to be looked at? So referrals necessary and so on. So, and then the rest of the book, chapters 5, 6 and 7 are a very, very detailed overview of how to work. Chapter 5, physical influences on energy. Chapter 6, the emotional influences on energy. And chapter 7, the cognitive. So the psychological influences, that second category, is divided into 2, the emotional and the cognitive. And that both of those chapters are very, very detailed, and all the different ways of working with the emotional, the cognitive.
Fantastic. Fascinating stuff. Let's turn the conversation slightly to how you actually went around the process of getting the book written, if you don't mind, because obviously that's quite an energetic pursuit in its own right. So how did you approach the writing process?
So obviously, as I've already said, the first stage was to do the research, to do that master's. And once I'd got the contract in place, it was a case of carrying on doing more and more research. So building on the data I already had, and exploring other areas as well, which I hadn't looked at in detail in the master's. So really, really pulling together lots more research. So that was the initial part of the process. And then I had to take a year out because my mum died, COVID came along. So my focus was on clearing the family home and keeping my family safe in that sort of situation and sane. So I was not remotely interested in writing. I could not have cared less about that book. I mean, I know some people used COVID to write, that time of being locked away. For me, it was just a total irrelevance, a total irrelevance. Yeah. And then I think I got back into it, partly because I had a contract in place, and Viv Chitty doesn't break contracts. It was like, oh my God, I've got this contract in place. They've been very kind at letting it sort of take the back burner, but I really need to start writing. So that was quite a motivator for me. So I then started to try and build the writing into my everyday working life. So to sort of get on the roll about 4:00 in the afternoon. That's when I usually do my best thinking, is about that time. I built it in by sort of having that time of day to work for an hour or two. But there was a slight problem with that, in that my kids at the time were about 12 and 17, so they were busy doing their own things. But my husband was working in London and commuting, so it was always down to me to cook. So, and it's not my favourite thing to do anyway, but so I don't really care about it that much. But they were always fed and watered with healthy stuff. Maybe look very repetitive.
Lots of jacket potatoes.
lots of that sort of thing, and the smell of burnt cooking because I get on a roll and then I smell.
Yeah.
I think to myself, I'm not going to burn the tea tonight. I'm not going to burn it. And then I would just think, oh, I'd have an idea. And I'd go and look research papers on that and start to build that into the manuscript. And then I'd smell the smell. It's like, no, not again. And but still believe my children believe that carrots are smoked, a smoked vegetable, and that you cook carrots by cutting the black bit off the bottom of bits of carrot. I'm sure they believe that. Yeah.
That's a chef.
They're old enough to have worked it out. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I always think it's quite interesting when people, the different types of day people write as well. So finding that sort of golden hour for you when you can slip into flow really easily and get the words in. And everybody does it slightly differently.
I think even now, if I'm working on something, so for example, I've just been researching imposter syndrome, and it's almost as if I have to get everything else done in my life, not just work, in the rest of the day. And then I've got all of that done in that day. And then I can sit down and off I go. And that's when I do my best thinking. There's no point me trying at 10 o'clock in the morning. It just doesn't happen.
So you've got lots of burnt dinners and a finished first draft.
Yes.
How did you get that to polished manuscript?
I worked with my PA. She's a fabulous proofreader. So together she'd done the proofreading for my dissertation. Together we produced a pretty good manuscript, not perfect in any shape or form, pretty good manuscript that went to Routledge. We ended up doing that then comes back from the editorial company that they use, and actually she worked with me because I couldn't use the tech that it came back with. It was just beyond me. I'm not the tech queen by any stretch of the imagination. It's not me. So she helped me do that. But we ended up pretty much doing all the line editing and the copy editing anyway, even when it came back in that form. So that together we did that. And we got that manuscript ready for printing.
Fantastic. And what did you learn during the whole process that surprised you?
I think it might say I'm not sort of trying to make a fuss, but you are very much on your own. So I learned to build good people around me who would support me, but really experienced practitioners. So when I self-published, I learned that, for example, if you're going to get the book onto Amazon and Ingram Sparks, that you need to get people in place early on. So an editor who can get your manuscript absolutely perfect for going into an Amazon print-on-demand format, who can then put it on Amazon for you and get the book to cover to fit, so that when it's print on demand, your book looks really, really good. And I know I couldn't have done that myself. So to build that team around you, so that was a big learning point for me.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when people say publish a book, there's a kind of almost an imagination process that goes on, that this book is written and then it just magically appears everywhere. But of course, there's a whole industry of processes and technology and buttons to press and different formats for different things and so on and so forth. And Amazon's ecosystem, I mean, even it's called Kindle Direct Publishing, even though you publish your paperback on there too. It's very confusing.
Yes,
so
it is. Yeah.
Getting the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting the right.
And they're hard. These people are hard to find. Yeah, they're hard to find, these people who can take it right to that point of going on Amazon. The woman I work with, she's just retired, and I know that it's left one of my colleagues who had introduced me to her, who's published quite a few of his books. He writes quite a lot. Is now looking for somebody else to do it, and he hasn't found anybody else. So you know, these people aren't easy to find necessarily. Yeah. So start early.
Yeah.
Start early, and really, really start early finding an indexer. And that was a big learning point for me. Oh, a massive learning point, because I had 3 over the Routledge book and the self-published version, the second version. I had 3 different indexers produced, and I don't want to seem overly critical, but 3 terrible indexes. One was absolutely awful, and so that was a big learning point, was to find an indexer very early on in the process who is recommended by somebody who's written a book in the similar field, because if you're writing a book as involved as research based as myself, for example, they've got to understand coaching, psychology, research, and so on. So it was that I ended up doing the index myself, which I'd never done before. It took me a week. Somebody said to me, your index mustn't be a rewrite of the book, that level of detail. And I think mine is. It's a very, very long, detailed index. Probably an index would look at that and say, for goodness sake, Viv, that's far too long. But better to have your book indexed in a way where you can find things than in a way where actually, it was just, some of them were bonkers. So that was another big learning point. But then, obviously, when you go from Routledge to self-publish, I changed the font, which meant that the pagination, the page numbers went out. So I had to do it all again for another 4 days. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Big learning points.
Spent many an hour looking at page breaks on Amazon in the past.
Yes.
So obviously you've got the experience of working with a traditional publisher and independently publishing. What are the pros and cons of both from your perspective?
Well, I think it's probably, if I just talk about the pros of self-publishing, I think that will probably say enough about the cons of working with a publisher. I can't say too much about the experience with Routledge, but the pros of self-publishing are that you are in control and you can build your team of practitioners around you, trusted colleagues who will work with you. And you can, and that includes the book cover design, because there are no restrictions on design. You can work with a designer, because I love painting. I haven't done any for a long time, but I really love painting and I love looking at art. So to work with a book designer to create a book cover together was just lovely. I just loved it.
Yeah.
You own the material. That's a very, very big pro. There are no issues with regard to permission to take out sections of the book. It's my material still. And I think that is really important, because if I want to write another book using that material, I have no issues at all. I can just do it. And I mean, the bottom line is, it's for me, I mean, it's not about making money. Writing a book, I mean, people know that writing books does not make you money, but at least you get, if I sell a book on Amazon for $24.99 paperback, I get £11 something for each book. With a publishing company, you'll get peanuts. I think it's 7% of net profit or something. So it's not comparable. And I like looking at the Amazon reports. You can just click onto KDP and you can look at reports and see how many books have sold on the back of, say, doing a LinkedIn post or something. So you really can see, relate one to the other. And you don't have to sign up to your publisher having first refusal for your next book. So you can get out of those clauses, I think, with most of them. But you're signed up to something, and also you control the marketing, and marketing of books is a whole different ball game. And I was so naive when I came into this about marketing the book. I just thought it would be done for me.
I think a lot of people think that. Yeah, I hear that a lot from people that say, I want to be traditionally published because I don't want to do any of the marketing. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You still have to do all the marketing. You just get less money.
Yes, absolutely.
So what marketing did you do for your book?
So I never have been the marketing expert in any way, shape or form, or for my work or anything like that. So I've pretty much learnt along the way, which is ironic given that I live with somebody who's a marketing director, which is quite funny really, because I'm hopeless and it's his job. So right, number one, what did I do? With the publishing company, I sat back and waited for them to do it, which, as you say, is not the right thing to do. So that was the first learning point. I think some companies are much better than others at the marketing they do for your book. So what I sort of learned and what I started to do over the years, some of these stages are obvious, but I asked people to review the book and post them on Amazon. And other review sites. I got the book reviewed by journals like the British Psychological Society Coaching Journal, Coaching Perspectives, Coaching at Work. So there were reviews in sort of the professional publications, and also some organisations like the Coaching Supervision Academy, where I did my training, and the Association of Executive Coaches, they and other organisations did reviews on their newsletters, online newsletters that they then send around to all their sort of population. A lot of work on LinkedIn. I did become the LinkedIn queen for about a year, which is not me, and I hadn't been before. So it made me chuckle really, because I could tell that people think, oh, she's got a book out. Suddenly profile is raised on this site. Public speaking. I spoke at the Oxford Books. I was the keynote for their coaching and mentoring conference. Being interviewed for webinars and podcasts. Again, I haven't been proactive on that. I've sort of waited for them to come to me. Getting it on course reading lists, and that is something that is very, very hard to do. I had tried so hard to get this book on coaching course reading lists. And when I met a very, very well-known writer in the coaching world, this very recently, I won't say who he is, but he said to me, oh yeah, your book's absolutely perfect for reading lists at universities, coaching courses and so on. And I said, they don't reply. I've contacted so many people. I don't know how to do that, and I haven't managed. It's on 2 Oxford Brookes where I did my masters, and it's on the Coaching Supervision Academy reading list. I don't think I managed to get it on, or at least I don't know if I have. And it could be because I'm not from the academic world. It might be, even though my
Yeah.
my supervisor for my dissertation laughed and said, you're meant to do the PhD first, Viv, before you write a book like this. So he thought it was PhD level. And it's like, look at you, you've gone and done it before the PhD. But yeah. So anything else? I've learned a lot along the way. And I think there's a gap in the market for marketing, coaching, or consultancy for people that write coaching books, because most of us don't know how to sort of tackle these, particularly getting it on the reading lists.
Yeah, it's the same questions that come up time and time again when I'm speaking to coaches that want to write books. They have the dream, they have the topic 9 times out of 10. It's actually what they do with it once it's written that they're not quite sure. And there's always this kind of disconnect between, so posting on social media is not marketing. It's visibility, is what I say. So LinkedIn, I think, is brilliant for visibility when you hit it hard and you remember. But what you've talked about is what I'd call the blue sea, fishing in the blue sea rather than the Red Sea, because actually that thought leadership, the speaking, the podcasts, those are smaller audiences, but dedicated audiences who are interested in the topic and are your ideal reader. And that ultimately is all you're looking at. We're all lifelong learners as coaches, aren't we? We want to read as many books as we can get our hands on. We just need to know where they are. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I know you've got a good answer to this question because we were chatting before we were recording, so I've got to make sure I ask it before we run out of time. What is a myth you would like to dispel in coaching or writing?
So the myth I would like to touch on dispelling, and I think this is definitely a subject for a much longer discussion, and that is that an AI coach can coach as well as a human. I fully understand that there are AI applications that can ask very, very good coaching questions, and that can be very, very useful. But I do not believe that AI can replace the complexity of coaching in complex relationships with clients. And I think we have to be very, very careful about the design of any AI coaching, because I'm going to say it, I'm going to be contentious. When I see LinkedIn responses about people who are pro AI coaching, they're very often people who are setting up AI coaching businesses who dismiss the coaches like me who say the human side of coaching, the working with our intuition, the working somatically, the being able to hold people who are distressed. You imagine AI trying to do the coaching through COVID that I was doing with doctors and nurses. Oh, please. So the AI coaching I did with kids in schools when we set up the charity for coaching kids in North London schools, when they come in and tell you, what do you want to look at in your coaching today? I want to look at how I approached the meeting with my teachers. And what was that about? I got caught smoking a joint in class. Okay. Now, do you see what I mean? It's like coaching is so involved and so varied. And the design of these applications needs to involve people like me who say, oh, no, you've got to think of this, you've got to think of that, and not have people like me who are dismissed as well, you're just not willing to follow technology, you're not going with the flow and the design. So that is the myth. I feel very strongly about it. That is the myth that I want to tackle. Brilliant. And no, I didn't use AI in my writing. I don't use AI in my writing at all. That was maybe another question.
Viv. Yeah, well, we would have touched on it if we'd gone there. But interestingly, I do use AI for a lot of things in my coaching practice and my writing. But there are areas that I keep 100% human. Yeah. So when it comes to writing, AI is brilliant for consolidating research.
Yeah.
It's great for citations, which I'm terrible at, and my editor is gold for sorting them out for me. It is great for making sure I haven't got loads of overused words in a chapter. Is it going to write the book? No, I'm going to write the book because that's the human bit.
Yeah.
And the same for me goes with coaching. It is, AI is a wonderful tool for helping to train new coaches, for example, but it can't empathize with you. It's a computer. And
Yes,
for me,
absolutely.
there is that humanity that is core to being a coach who is ethical. And so I actually agree with you as someone who is passionate about using AI in the future of work.
And keeping the debate open. Keeping the debate open.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the citation bit's interesting because when I was writing the book in 2017, 2018, I hadn't heard of ChatGPT. I mean, it wasn't used as much then, was it? I mean, so there weren't those things that you could put your script into, your manuscript into. And as I say, I had Deb, who was my, that you've got too many of that word in one paragraph, sort it. She was the one that did that for me. So that was great. Where the citations are concerned, there was the tech around that would do that for you. But I have this real enjoyment of doing them. I don't know what it is. So I was quite happy to do them myself. But I think if I did it again now, I might learn that. The getting citations right. Yeah. Yeah.
But even now, I like it because it didn't get them all right.
No. And my son's dissertation for his degree, it's like, oh, can I do your citations, please? Can I proofread? It's like, are you mad? No. Let me have them. So I do quite like to. Don't know why. That and indexing. Don't know what's wrong with me.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Viv, what advice would you give to other coaches who are aspiring to write their first book?
I think if you've got, like you were saying about people who've done the research and they're being told and they believe that there is a book to be written out of that, it's going to be an itch that you need to scratch. It's going to be with you. So give it a go. See how you like writing. Build that team of trusted humans around you. Having somebody that will proofread something through and use the tech as much as you want, obviously. I mean, that's personal choice. But having somebody that just says, oh, that doesn't sound like you writing, things like that. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Getting people in place early, like who's going to do your proofreading, your indexing. I've said that. Really, if you're going with a publishing company, find out what their marketing is, what their marketing really is. Maybe get them to bullet point for you what they're going to do. So, I mean, my way of looking at it was I need to know what the publishing company is going to do because I need to do what they're not going to do. So if you can get that up front, get that written out, not just the blurb that's on their fancy publications, get them to really, really clarify what they're going to do for you. So you know where you need to build your marketing plan in around that. That would be really strong advice. So some people benefit from having a writing coach. So for example, I put in a colleague of mine who was writing a book, but she was a little bit, she said to me, I'm a bit all over the place with my thinking. I said, well, I've got a friend who's a writing coach, ex-Penguin. Do you want me to introduce you to him? And their working relationship has been absolutely brilliant. So that might be something to think about. Then again, you're not on your own. And think seriously about self-publishing because for all the benefits I said, unless you think your publishing company is going to get your book into a professional world like the academic world, and you don't think you can, but if you think that they will, if they say they will, but will they, would be my thing, my lesson.
So much great advice today. Honestly, I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much.
I think we could.
With us. Let's close by, would you mind sharing with listeners where they can find you, your services and your book online?
So you can find me, if you Google my name, there aren't that many Viv Chitties around, so just Google me and it will take you to my website. All the contact details are there. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. Again, I don't think there's that many of my names on LinkedIn. So that they would be the best ways of getting hold of me. As I say, the website's got all my contact information on there and information about the book as well.
Perfect. And I'll make sure all the links to that is in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So much for your time. That's been brilliant.
I've loved it. It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
I have too. Thanks, Viv.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the interview with Viv. My guest next week is Carolyn Calthwaite, and we'll be talking all about her book, The Grief Book. I'll see you for the next chapter. Thank you for joining me today. You can get the show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachwrite.co.uk. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Your words can make a difference. A review can too. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn, O'Neill Helen, that's O'Neill, O'Neill, or on Instagram at Helen O'Neill Coaching. I'll see you for the next chapter of Coach Write.